much, we are now joined by Mike Valila. Mike Valila honorably served in the U.S. Army and National Guard for 9 years as a mechanic and truck driver. He was deployed in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation New Dawn, and also served as the 54th Regimental Honor Guard conducting military funerals across the state of Massachusetts. Mike, thanks so much for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
So I failed to mention as all of this that you are also the adjutant for the DAV Department of Massachusetts. Would you mind talking to me a little bit about how you became involved with the DAV?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first came home from Iraq, I wanted to change what I was doing for employment. Prior to, I was doing the military funerals, but I came home and I said, I really don't want to hold a flag and bury any of my brothers any longer. So I had started working in a different capacity. I was a grant manager at my hospital in town, and I started running a peer-to-peer veterans group, just a place where guys could kind of talk and get things off their chest, connect with one another in my spare hours in the evening there. And one thing led to another. I started helping guys with their disability claims. And long story short, one of our former national commanders of DAV caught wind of what I was doing and came and spoke to me and said, I think you fit in really well over at DAV. And he introduced me to the team in Boston. And very shortly thereafter, I started as a national service officer for DAV, doing claims, benefits, and appeals out of the office in Boston. Then a few years ago, I transitioned out of that position and came over to the State Department. So I wanted to have more of an impact locally with the veterans that we serve here in the Commonwealth. And then Dan Stack took me under his wing, and the rest is history. I was appointed as assistant adjutant 2 years ago, and then appointed as adjutant this past September.
Mike, I know there's a lot of great work that the DAV does. We've talked about volunteer opportunities in transportation and veterans with physical disabilities. Can you talk to us a little bit more about what you alluded to, which is the mental health side of all of this, the PTSD that you see, and your experience on that side of things, working with other service members and the DAV's work on that side particularly?
Yeah. Absolutely. Interesting story enough. Dan was actually one of the people who participated in a study back in the 70s that helped create the diagnosis of PTSD. DAV funded that research study that came out with the diagnosis, and then through our lobbying and legislative actions, we were able to get it added to the DSM-3 so it could be recognized as a formal mental health diagnosis in veterans. And then legislatively, we were able to get it moved so that veterans could be treated for and service-connected and receive health care for mental health. And that's one of the really unique things about this organization that really pulled me in. I, like many veterans, have memberships to a whole cohort of veteran service organizations and nonprofits. And I've been very active in many of them throughout the years. But DAV is kind of where I sunk all of my efforts in, and that's really captured my attention and my family's attention, because it is a very family-friendly organization, accepting, when you bring in your spouse, your kids, whomever, the organization is very friendly to family. We have an auxiliary component that's specifically there for family members and supporters of veterans to join and become a part of, and that auxiliary supports all the efforts of DAV. Throughout the state, we log our service encounters with veterans. Just from November 11th, Veterans Day last year, 2022, to yesterday, I pulled the report. It shows that just in Massachusetts here, we've had over 100,000 service encounters and referrals provided by our members. Those services include, but aren't limited to, assistance with claims and benefits, transportation, food pantry, housing, mental health care, peer support, community and social activities, We have 128 certified service officers across the state, stationed at each of our VA medical centers and in many cities and towns as well. They completed over 4,000 interviews, resulting in over 3,200 disability claims filed this past year. Our voluntary service program in the hospitals has over 260 registered volunteers at our 5 VA medical centers in Massachusetts. And this past year, they put in over 28,000 hours of service to hospitalized veterans with a cost savings to the VA of over $2.5 million. And the transportation network is fantastic that Coleman was speaking about earlier. We have 32 volunteer drivers in the state right now, and in the past year, they've logged over 3,500 hours, traveled over 53,000 miles, and transported over 700 veterans to their VA medical appointments. So when somebody thinks about donating to DAV or helping DAV, and they're really thinking, where's that money going? That's where that money's going. I'm proud to say that more than 98% of the donations that we have go directly to the veterans in need of those services that we provide. DAV carries a 100% rating on Charity Navigator as a 4-star charity. It's a great organization to be a part of.
Sure is. Mike Valila, he is the adjutant of the DAV Department of Massachusetts and joins us today to talk about his work with the department. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, and really appreciate you coming on the show and talking about the organization.
Thanks for having me, Mike, and I look forward to seeing you and everybody else at the 5K tomorrow. If you've never been before, it's a very family-friendly environment. It's not just a bunch of people running, but there's a lot of pomp and circumstance to it. We have the howitzer cannons that start us off and get everybody really excited. We have tons of vendors that come in, the sausage guy, Wahlburgers, and so many more that leave everybody with a full stomach afterwards. It's just a really, really good time for everybody of all ages. So I hope to see you there in the morning, Mike.
No doubt. Thanks, Mike. Again, if you want to make your donation, you can call 978-632-1985. That number again is 978-632-1985, or by visiting dav5k.boston.